They found a human skull burning in an abandoned house. There are some things you should never touch, some places you should never enter, and some things were never meant to be found. Because sometimes the dead don't stay dead. In 1998, 3 men entered an abandoned property deep in the woods of West Virginia. They were looking for something valuable. They found something else. A human skull. And it was burning, not sitting beside a fire, not surrounded by gasoline. The skull itself was on fire. The property had been abandoned for more than 20 years. Locals avoided it. They said the previous owner had disappeared without a trace. No body was ever found. No explanation was ever given. But the 3 men didn't believe in ghost stories. They believed abandoned houses meant easy money. That night they entered through a broken window. The house was almost completely dark. Their flashlights revealed peeling wallpaper, rotting furniture, and strange black marks covering the floor. Then one of them noticed something in the basement, a faint orange glow. They followed it downstairs, and that's when they saw the skull. It was sitting in the center of the basement floor, completely black, partially burned, and surrounded by flames. But there was no wood, no gasoline, no candle, nothing that could explain the fire. Just the skull, burning. One of the men laughed. He thought someone had planted it there. Another pulled out his phone and started recording. The 3rd man didn't laugh. He was staring at the skull because something was wrong. The flames weren't moving with the air. They were moving toward him. Every time he stepped backward, the flames leaned toward him. He whispered, "Do you see that?" Nobody answered. Then the skull moved, just slightly. Everyone froze. The jaw had shifted. One of the men dropped his phone, and then they heard it. A voice coming from inside the skull. At first, they couldn't understand the words. It sounded like someone whispering from underwater. Then the voice became clearer. One name, the name of one of the men standing in the basement. He stopped breathing because nobody there knew that name. Not his friends, not his family, nobody. At least, that's what he thought. He stepped toward the skull. His friend grabbed his arm. "Don't!" But he didn't listen. He reached down and touched the bone. The flames instantly disappeared. The basement went completely dark. For several seconds, there was nothing. No wind, no footsteps, no breathing. Then, the skull whispered again. "You're late!" They ran. They didn't grab their equipment. They didn't grab their phones. They didn't even turn off the flashlights. They ran straight up the stairs. One of them reached the front door. It wouldn't open. He pulled harder. Nothing. His friend joined him. Still nothing. Then they heard footsteps behind them. One step. Another. Another. Something was walking up the basement stairs, but they hadn't seen anything leave the basement. The door suddenly opened. They ran outside and didn't stop until they reached the road. They called the police. Officers arrived less than 30 minutes later. The men told them everything. The burning skull, the voice, the locked door, the footsteps. The officers searched the property. Nothing. No skull, no fire, no footprints, nothing. One officer called it a prank. Another suggested the men had been drinking. Then they found the phone. The phone that had been dropped in the basement. The recording was still running. The officer played it. At first, there was only silence. Then footsteps. Then breathing. Then the voice. "You're late." The officer replayed it. But this time, there was something else. A second voice. "He's not the one." Everyone in the room went silent, because the second voice was coming from behind the person holding the phone. The investigation continued. Police searched old property records. They discovered something strange. The house had belonged to a man named Daniel Mercer. Mercer disappeared in 1974. His wife claimed he had become obsessed with something in the basement. She said he stopped sleeping, stopped eating, and spent hours talking to the walls. 3 days before he disappeared, he told his wife something she never forgot. "I found the first one." The police never understood what he meant, until they searched the basement again. Behind a section of rotting wood, they found a hidden room. Inside was a collection of photographs, dozens of them, all taken inside the same house. Different people, different years, different faces, but every photograph had one thing in common. In the background, there was always a skull, burning. The last photograph was different. It had been taken recently, very recently. It showed the 3 men standing in the basement, the exact moment they discovered the skull. But there was something behind them, a figure, tall, thin, almost completely hidden in darkness, and its hand was resting on one man's shoulder, the man who had touched the skull. The police asked him if anyone had been standing behind him. He said no. The officers showed him the photograph. He stared at it. Then his face changed, because he recognized the figure. He had seen it before, in his dreams, every night, for the past 6 months. That night the man went home. He locked every door, closed every window, turned on every light, and tried to convince himself it was over. At 3:13 a.m. in the morning, his bedroom became cold. Then he smelled smoke. He looked toward the hallway. Nothing. He checked the kitchen. Nothing. Then he noticed something glowing beneath his bedroom door. Orange light. Firelight. He slowly opened the door. The hallway was empty, but at the end of it sat the skull, burning again. He stepped backward. The skull's jaw slowly opened, and this time the voice was clear. "You were supposed to leave me there." He couldn't move. The flames rose higher, and inside the fire, he saw a face, not a stranger, his own face. The police arrived the next morning. The house was locked from the inside. There was no sign of him, no broken windows, no blood, no footprints, nothing, except one thing. On the bedroom floor, they found a perfectly clean human skull, cold, silent, no fire, no explanation. The officer picked it up, and, for a moment, nothing happened. Then the skull whispered, "You're late." The officer dropped it. He stepped backward and looked at the bedroom wall, because something was moving behind it. Slowly, something scratched from the inside, once, twice, then 3 times. The officer raised his flashlight, and the scratching stopped. Then a voice came from behind the wall. Not the man's voice, not the voice from the skull, a child's voice. "There's another one." The flashlight flickered and went out. Then, somewhere in the darkness, a fire began burning, and this time, there wasn't one skull. There were dozens, all burning, all facing the same direction, all staring directly at him. "You're late." And that's where the story ends. Or, at least, that's where the recording ends. Because if you ever find a skull burning in the darkness, don't put out the fire. Don't touch it. And whatever you do, don't listen when it says your name. Your name isn't the first thing it's going to say.